Hello, it's Miss Stacy, OT, here to talk about the dreaded back to school with a mask. For a lot of adults even, a mask is kind of challenging, especially if you have to wear it for several hours at a time. Now, working in healthcare for many years, I've kind of gotten used to it. Still don't love it, but you learn to ignore it, just like you've learned to ignore that you're wearing pants. But for some kids that have sensory issues, we know how hard the pants are. Now we want them to put something on their face. Yikes. So if you have someone that doesn't like the feeling of clothing or other things touching them, now is the time to start getting ready for the school year, especially if it looks like your district is going to be doing at least some in-person instruction. So the first thing to establish is, what about the mask wear is difficult? Is it simply that this is a change and change is hard to get used to? Or is there a physiological response, like a sensory concern, that's making it more uncomfortable for that child or individual than it would be for you or I? So once you've established why you think the behavior is happening, then it's much easier to know how to support the child. Make sure that there's no medical or dental causes for the difficulty with the mask wear. Very often, if something's tugging on their ears and they already have an ear infection, it's going to be 100 times worse for that child to keep a mask on. And have there been any other changes, like a lot right now, in the child's life that could be putting additional stress on them? Try a little bit of experimentation with the style of mask that you're using. There's the inexpensive, disposable, kind of paperish masks that are typically called surgical masks. We use these in medical settings a lot because we want to throw them away after every use and between every patient. So we can go through a lot in a day. Then there is the N95 and the KN95. Similar in how much they stop as far as bacteria flow or viral flow or pathogen flow in general. The difference is really the seal. In N95, the one all the hospitals are trying to get for their people, is a really tight seal. Those are the ones where you see the healthcare workers with the lines on their faces. Those suckers are tight. Probably not what you want to use for a kid with sensory issues. But the KN95 might not be a bad fit, especially because it's cone-shaped and tends to come away from the mouth a little bit. So if they actually have an issue with things touching right on their lips, that's a good alternative because it only touches on the face around the mouth. And then there's the very popular cloth masks. These come in a variety of colors, and you can get cartoon characters on them and their favorite characters or their favorite sports teams, and that might be really motivating. I personally find the cloth mask the most difficult to breathe in as far as stuffiness, and the easy disposable papery ones the easiest. But as long as we're talking a child over the age of 2 or 3 without any respiratory issues, it shouldn't really matter as far as breathing which type to use. If you can fog your glasses, enough air is coming and going through the mask that you're not going to risk any sort of CO2 buildup. Now, if it's just new and you're trying to get the child used to it, the best way is some sort of wearing schedule. More frequent wears for shorter periods of time tend to help, especially in the beginning. Use a digital timer. There's one on your phone. You don't need anything special. If the child doesn't do well with understanding numbers and time concept, then those visual timers with the circular countdown are nice. This lets the child know that the minute's almost up. They can get through it just a few more seconds. Start with very short time periods, literally 30 seconds, then a minute, then maybe 3 minutes, then 5 minutes. Work your way up to the time frame that the child will have to wear the mask at school. Shoot for at least an hour. And try to connect the mask wearing to an activity. If they're just sitting there with a mask on, that mask is going to be so distracting. Think about when you have a hangnail. And if you don't have much going on and you're sitting in a meeting, that is so annoying and it's all you can think about. But if you're busy in a project and you're doing all these different things, it keeps your mind off of it. You don't notice it as much. Same goes for our kids. Try to connect wearing a mask with tablet time or going outside to do an activity, getting to run an errand at the store. These are situations where they need to have a mask on anyway. Make it a practice run, especially if it's just something that can be quick in and out. Now, if it's a sensory issue as well, that adds a whole nother layer of complexity to the issue. First of all, speak with the child's occupational therapist. Get them on a sensory program. Some therapists can do remote visits. Some are new to remote visits. Some, like myself, have been doing programs that can be done remotely for a long time, and it's not a big deal at all. We do it very efficiently and very well using some augmented programs. I personally, in this kind of virtual sensory situation, love the Mendabilities program. Not a sponsor, but it's set up to be monitored through the computer by a therapist, done in the home by parents with very detailed instructions on exactly what you need to do. It's step by step. It's easy for parents. They love it. And it, most importantly, has verified great results. So there are options out there. Get your child on a sensory program to help desensitize so that they're not so overreactive to something on their face. You might also find that once they're on a good sensory protocol, you're not seeing other sensory behaviors as well. They might actually keep their shoes and socks on when you want them to, or take them off when you need them to. When a child is well regulated and their sensory system feels balanced, they're just a happier kid and life's easier for everybody. Your therapist might recommend something like the Williman brushing protocol. This uses a plastic surgical brush and it involves very firm brush strokes on the child in certain areas. It's not a protocol we do to the face, but sometimes doing this to other parts of the body can still help regulate their overall nervous system. Other things you can do are specifically touching their face more often. Have them touch it. You touch it. Have them touch different textures to their face. Get them used to using the nerves on their face and interpreting sensation. That's really what a sensory processing delay is. They just haven't had enough experience for their particular nervous system to figure out what all this input really means and what to do with it. So give them lots of extra practice. Like I said, your go-to is going to be your occupational therapist. If you don't have one yet, feel free to reach out to me at adaptoutherapy.com and I'd be happy to try and help.